Russian interference into Kamala Harris's campaign. Russian propaganda groups said to be behind fake Kamala Harris videos. And US Federal Reserve all set to cut rates for the first time in 4 years, could have a major impact on global markets around the world. The first story on the show, Donald Trump returned to campaign trail in Michigan after a thwarted assassination attempt over the weekend, addressing the shocking incident while also railing against President Joe Biden and Vice President Kamala Harris's handling of the issues facing the country. Speaking at a town hall in Michigan, Donald Trump said that the only consequential presidents get shot at. This comes days after Secret Service agents apparently stopped an assassination attempt at his Florida golf course and marked the second attempt on Donald Trump's life in this election race. Donald Trump was injured in a shooting at a Pennsylvania rally just days before the Republican convention in July, and one attendee was in fact killed in that attack. Today, Donald Trump will also be hosting a rally in New York, while GOP vice presidential nominee, that's J.D. Vance, will speak at a rally in North Carolina. Donald Trump will also hold another rally in North Carolina on Saturday, while his running mate, vice presidential candidate J.D. Vance, will join Tucker Carlson in Pennsylvania in a bid to focus on the swing states. But first up, listen in to what Donald Trump had to say.
Well, it's been a great experience. It's a dangerous business, however, being president. It's a little bit dangerous. It's, they think race car driving is dangerous. No. They think bull riding, that's pretty scary, right? No. This is a dangerous business, and we have to keep it safe.
In fact, Republican nominee and former President Donald Trump on Tuesday also claimed that Chinese automakers are putting up large factories in Mexico, and he vowed during a stop in the automaking state of Michigan to slap 200% tariffs on any vehicle the unbuilt plants make and ship to the United States. He also claimed that if Democrat presidential nominee and the present Vice President of US, Kamala Harris, is elected in November, there will be no more auto industry in the US because work building electric vehicles will in fact go to China. This statement came even though automaking employment has grown since President Joe Biden took office after dropping during Trump's first term. Donald Trump said his tariffs would make Chinese vehicles built in Mexico unsellable, quote unquote, in the US, forcing automakers from China and elsewhere to set up factories in the US, what many call as friend shoring, which is to come, or near shoring, which is to come back to the main markets. All right, now taking a look at the big story that we are tracking on US Election Watch today, which is, well, what's really happening with the US election this time around in terms of the political violence and repeated attempts and instances coming to light of violence. And the US Secret Service is facing renewed security after a second assassination attempt against former President Donald Trump in 2 months. Facing the backlash, acting US Secret Service Director Ronald Rowe is making a pitch for more resources while Congress is seeking to hold the agency responsible. The U.S. Secret Service has been reeling since a gunman's bullet grazed the 78-year-old Trump his ear during the July 13 campaign rally in Pennsylvania. Secret Service Director Kimberly Cheatle resigned 10 days later, acknowledging that the agency had failed its protective mission. At least 5 Secret Service agents have reportedly been placed on leave, quote unquote, pending the completion of an internal security service review of the lapses. However, both Biden and Trump have been defending the Secret Service. President Biden, responding to the latest attack on the Republican White House candidates, said the agency charged with protecting high-profile officials needs more help, while Donald Trump said the agency did an excellent job. Today, members of the task force investigating the assassination attempt of former President Donald Trump will be briefed by the U.S. Secret Service. In fact, to discuss this in greater detail, we have a power-packed panel today. First is Matt Klink, and then there's Ajay Jain Bhaturia and Zenia Behel as well, essentially covering all aspects of this discussion, the Republican view, the Democrat view, and an independent view as well. And in fact, let me start with the independent view. Zenia, you're a professor and political analyst at the Cleveland State University in Ohio. I ask you this question that many viewing the election outside the US are getting the impression that there is now increased attempts and increasing amount of violence that is taking place in these elections, something that is not the case normally. Is that how the perception is also building back home, and how do you see this?
Yes, absolutely. There is a perception and the belief that the Secret Service has not been able to aptly protect a presidential candidate, Donald Trump, right, former president. One thing I do want to note is when Trump exited the office back in 2021, his protection specifically was heightened, and he was given more protection than what is usually given to the former commander-in-chief, and that's primarily because of his extremely busy schedule that he had maintained. And his own security detail had repeatedly requested Secret Services to increase his security and increase what has been provided to him, given his schedule and given, looming threat and the looming fear, right? And one thing to note is such a thing and two assassination attempts, right, in close proximity of one another in terms of the timeline, right, have not happened. And these types of lapses in security have not happened since 1981, when there was an attack on Ronald Reagan, according to the NBC. And while we have seen in the past U.S. presidential candidates as well as presidents, have been assassinated, and there has been an assassinated attempt from Theodore Roosevelt to, of course, John F. Kennedy to, Ronald Reagan. But such a lapse has not happened since 1981, which actually led to the resigning of, as you mentioned, Kimberly Chattel. So the voters are extremely concerned. And while this was not discussed in the presidential debate between Vice President Kamala Harris and Republican presidential nominee, former President Donald Trump,
right,
it is a big issue, right? Security.
It is a big issue
of this.
Exactly. It is a big issue. And let me ask this to Matt, representing the Republican Party, because those two attempts have been made on the Republican presidential nominee. Matt, how do you see this election? Is this different from the several others presidential elections in the past? And as Zenia was pointing out, not since 1981 has political violence peaked the way it has in the US elections this time around.
Yeah, it's undeniable that there is an incredible amount of stress in the elections this year. However, I will point out that this is due in a large part to the very caustic rhetoric that the Democratic Party continually puts forward when you regularly say that someone is a dictator or a semi-fascist or a threat to democracy or a threat to national security, which both Joe Biden and Kamala Harris and Governor Walz have done throughout this campaign. It heightens an already heightened electorate. And look, the Democrats can say, well, what about Trump? What about this? The only one who has been shot at now twice is Donald Trump. So they are the ones that need to cool their rhetoric. Joe Biden went on national television and told people to cool the rhetoric. And 48 hours later, he led with Donald Trump as an existential threat to democracy. So again, the rhetoric does not match up. They keep on saying one thing, but they end up doing another. And, look, the Secret Service, the men and women who protect the president and the presidential detail, they're doing their best. But again, the funding is not adequate. And it was an abject failure in Butler, Pennsylvania, which was the first attempt. And then roughly 9 weeks later, it happened again. And we're hearing reports of a potential bomb on the side of the road in New York State. So, look, rhetoric does matter, and the Democrats need to cool it because they are directly responsible for this.
Respond to that, Ajay, that this is now a very direct accountability issue that has been raised by the Republican Party, that Democrats need to own up to the kind of commentary that they allege is leading to the kind of attacks that Donald Trump is facing?
It's very unfortunate what has happened, attack on former President Donald Trump. It should not happen in the U.S. There's a history that we settle our differences in policies through ballots and not bullets. But however, I should remind that on January 6, 2021, what happened, the mob was incited to attack on the Capitol. That was incited by President Donald Trump. And President Biden and Kamala Harris have denounced political violence over and over and over again. And what I'm hearing about us raising political violence. This is an admonition that has denounced and condemned any type of political violence. And President Biden this week requested that there needs to be more security, there needs to be more funding for the secret services, and whatever measures needs to be done to give more security to President Trump, that should have been done and should be continued to be done. But I also want to remind that in 2020, President Biden decided to run for the very same reason, to free the country from what the rhetoric, the divisiveness, the hate which Trump was spreading, to protect the soul of our nation. And that's the same reason, Vice President Harris is running for the freedom of our country and for keeping the freedom and save the democracy. Because Trump has over and over again, has himself said on the national TV that he's going to be dictator from day one. And his Project 2025. That is the whole purpose. Two important things.
But this is not about Project 2025, Ajay. This is not about Project 2025. This is about political violence in the US, with one side saying that all attacks are coming to us because the other side, quote unquote, is making commentary leading to it. That's essentially what this debate is about. This is not about 2025. Respond to that, sir, and then I get in Zenia on it.
It is 2025 because that he's saying that he's going to be dictator number from day one. He's going to destroy FBI and all the agencies. And all this rhetoric, what he's saying, is against democracy, and that is going to destroy the democracy. And that is what we have to tell the people, that is a threat to democracy.
Okay, I just want to be objective, fair, transparent, and without bias, which is that, Ajay, some of those comments that you made, we have on this show itself put out Donald Trump's statements, his quotes, where he has said that I have not said any of this in the past. As I said, this show is about being an unbiased reportage of the US election of the US elections. And Zenia, let me bring you in, and then I get Matt, I'll give you a chance to respond, but I want to quickly get in Zenia on this. Zenia, this is essentially what it's coming down to, starting from political violence, impacting the voter's psyche, but essentially coming down to a discussion about, well, hey, you talked about January 6th, you talk about personal attacks on Trump, and that's what it just boils down to, impacting the election and the electorate. How do you see that impacting the voters?
See, one thing I want to point out is currently, while Trump is in New York, both of them have been battling in the key battleground states, the swing states, which is Georgia and Pennsylvania, right? And voters in those states, per polls conducted by Bloomberg, Times Siena, they are divided on a lot of issues when it comes to immigration, when it comes to taxation policies, foreign policy, the war in Ukraine, the war in Gaza, which I've talked about on your show. There are a lot of policies and issues that the electorate is divided on, and security, again, is a priority for individuals, especially as we've seen things play out recently with political violence, with the 2 assassination attempts on Donald Trump. Why this is happening is because of primarily divisive politics, right? Extremism, hardline views, right? You're not looking at ideas of neoliberalism, neopopulism. You're looking at extremism. You're looking at dictatorship. My fellow panelists talked about fascism. Right. Those are the ideas that are being discussed, which is really inciting, political violence. And I think
when we use, again, Matt, I want to give you the chance to respond, and then we talk this further about how when we talk about big phrases like fascism and dictatorship and stuff like that, we sort of go away from the fundamental issues that we are discussing now, and which is essentially a subset of the US election as well.
Thank you. Your guest did a very noble attempt by parroting back what Kamala Harris and Joe Biden do. They stand up there and they thump their chest. Of course, we're opposed to political violence. And then the transition, but Donald Trump is an existential threat to democracy. Donald Trump is a semi-fascist. Donald Trump is a dictator. Donald Trump is a threat to national security. So they trying to have their cake and eat it too. And they have to do this because they realize that Kamala Harris is losing badly on the economy. I mean, let's face it, with Bidenomics, you pay more to live worse. And the voters know that Kamala Harris's economic policies propose no doom cycle.
Just a second. Let him finish. He's getting a chance to respond after a while. I will give you a chance, Zenia. I'll give you a chance. Yes. Let Matt reply. Yeah, let Matt finish his point. Yes.
So look, this is what the Democrats do, is they come out and they say, of course, we're opposed to political violence. We should settle our views at the ballot box. Yet their rhetoric continues. And the only person who has had now 2 assassination attempts against him in 9 weeks is Donald Trump. So, once is a random occurrence, twice is a pattern. If it happens again, it becomes something that becomes more normal. And the Democrat Party, this is their strategy for this campaign. They are trying to denormalize Donald Trump to the voters. Thankfully, it's not working. So now go ahead and bash him.
Yes, Zenia, quickly. And then I get in Ajay also.
Sorry, I'd like to respond to that. Matt, I do want to understand from you, if you call it Bidenomics, right, how has either president severely impacted the economy? Because the economy is not necessarily controlled by the president of the United States. It's primarily controlled by the Federal Reserve.
Okay, that's a very good question. But no. Okay, both of you. Let me come in here, sir. Let me come in here, all of you. We have debated the economy. We will do so tomorrow as well, because today Fed is likely to cut rates as well. We will do that tomorrow. But today is about political violence. There are a gazillion issues. Let's take them one at a time. This is about political violence. This is about one side accusing the other of instigating attacks on one particular candidate. And Ajay, respond to what Matt is saying, which is that commentary coming in from the Democrat camp is playing a large role in stoking some of these tensions.
I want to add another angle here. What is also adding is that the free access of guns like AR-15 and AK-47, which should have been removed from the streets and from the hands of the people. And that is what we Democrats are fighting for, to ban the assault weapons, something which has been what media shows me has been used against President Trump, or killing hundreds and thousands of people across schools, malls, and places of worship, malls, etc. So the question comes, what measures can be taken to improve security at campaign rallies and protect candidates? How can we balance the need of candidates to have access to the public as well as improve the security? What role should gun play in preventing similar incidents in future? What action can be taken in gun control? Trump has been opposed to gun control. He has been, he doesn't want any gun control, while the Democrats want these assault weapons to be taken off the street and to make America more safe again. That's all I have to say.
That's an important point, Matt. Respond to that the gun culture that the Republicans seem to promote is also playing a role in some of these attacks.
So first of all, an AK-47 is already illegal, and the gun that he had was illegal. So banning a gun that's already illegal, it doesn't seem like a reasonable thing. Look, Kamala Harris has already said that she would pursue a mandatory gun buyback program, and now she's backed away from it because there are 300 million semi-automatic weapons in the United States. So, and look, guns don't kill people. People kill people. And you had a crazy man here with the gun. I'm all for keeping guns out of the hands of crazy people. But when the Democrats try to take firearms from law-abiding American citizens. I mean, don't forget, it's the Second Amendment to the Constitution that guarantees the right to keep and bear arms. And the amendments are listed in order of priority. Freedom of speech comes first. The right to keep and bear arms is second. So, Ajay, if you want to push your gun control culture that Kamala Harris has at least rhetorically backed away from because she knows that it's a loser politically, please do. In fact, I would urge you and Kamala Harris to make it more of an issue in swing states like Pennsylvania and Georgia.
Okay. All right. Okay. So this is an issue that is bound to create more tensions, an issue that I'm sure we'll revisit because there's still several weeks left for the election. But today I'm completely out of time. Thank you so much, all three of you, for joining me on this edition of US Election Watch. I really appreciate your time. And moving on, Vice President Kamala Harris and former President Donald Trump are now focusing on the Rust Belt states. Now, these are Michigan, Wisconsin, Pennsylvania. Pennsylvania also has 19 electoral college votes, remember? Now, these are pivotal to the elections. Trump won the presidency in 2016 by securing all these three states with a combined margin of about 80,000 votes. And President Biden reclaimed the White House in 2020 by winning the same states with a margin of about 260,000 votes. Both the Trump and Harris campaigns have now been heavily invested in Pennsylvania, with about $120 million being spent in advertising as in the Rust Belt states as compared to the rest of the region. Take a look at this report that my colleague Vishal Vivek filed on the significance of these states.
The US election is an elaborate and extensive affair, owing to the complexity of the process and the size of the country. Out of the 50 states, 7 are known as swing states, which hold the key to the White House, as both major political parties have similar levels of support among voters. And out of those 7 states, 3 seem to be the most important: Michigan, Wisconsin, and Pennsylvania. Donald Trump won all 3 states in 2016 to become the president. He had defeated Hillary Clinton by a combined margin of about 80,000 votes. 4 years later, Joe Biden snatched back the states from the Republicans by a combined margin of about 260,000 votes. The importance of these states can be gauged by the level of campaign advertising and candidate visits. Both Kamala Harris and Trump have been coming back to these states during their respective campaign trails. Ever since Harris replaced Biden as the Democratic candidate, the candidates have spent more money in advertising in Pennsylvania than anywhere else, with Michigan and Wisconsin ranked 2nd and 4th respectively, according to reports. That's not all, as the states rank the same in the amount of advertising the campaigns have reserved through November. The Harris and Trump teams have spent nearly $120 million more on ads in these 3 states than they have in Georgia, North Carolina, Arizona, and Nevada, the rest of the swing states. Harris will be making an appearance in all 3 states again this week. On the other hand, Trump held a town hall in Michigan. While the candidates will not mind collecting votes across the country, they will dedicate a significant part of their attention to these 3 states. With Vishal Vivek, Bureau Report, NDTV.
All right, a new Microsoft threat intelligence report has revealed how Russia-linked actors are now going full throttle in their covert influence efforts to target the Harris-Walz campaign. Microsoft has identified Russian propaganda efforts targeting Vice President Kamala Harris's presidential campaign with fabricated videos. One of the inauthentic videos, which Microsoft said had been viewed millions of times, claimed to show Harris supporters attacking an attendee of a Donald Trump rally. Another video falsely claimed that Harris paralyzed a young girl in 2011 hit-and-run case. The report is the latest evidence that Kremlin-linked trolls and digital operatives are now ramping up their efforts to influence and sway public opinion in the upcoming November elections. All right, moving on to more stories coming in. California will now require social media companies to moderate the spread of election-related impersonations that have been created by artificial intelligence. Now, these are called deep fakes, and the Democratic governor Gavin Newsom has signed 3 new laws, including a groundbreaking measure that mandates social media platforms to ban or label deepfakes. While one of these laws will take effect just in time to influence the 2024 presidential elections, the trio the 3 laws together could serve as a model for regulators nationwide looking to curb manipulative AI-generated content. But these laws are likely to face legal challenges from social media companies and free speech advocacy groups as well. All right, moving on to more news coming in from US. The US Senate bill to make IVF nationwide right fails. Republicans block the IVF bill despite Trump support. A bill fell short of 60 votes and only 2 Republicans voted in favor, and condemnation has come in from Kamala Harris, and Republicans have blocking the IVF bill. Joe Biden, president, has called the bill the failure of the bill to be passed as outrageous and unacceptable. All right, with that, it's a wrap of this edition of US Election Watch. Thanks so much for watching. नीचे ही जा रहे हैं। ये क्या हुआ?
Good evening and welcome to Left, Right and Centre. I'm Vishnu Shom on the programme tonight. First, some breaking news coming in after pagers, walkie-talkies have started exploding in Lebanon, believed to be part 2 of Israel's offensive against the Hezbollah. We'll bring you the latest on what is a new form of warfare being fought in one of the most volatile regions